Hello everyone, this is RetroFuture and I have another Battleborn character review, and in this episode we are going to be looking at Montana. Yes, the big lumbering hunk of muscle himself, Montana, one of the most iconic and easily recognizable characters in the game. We're going to be looking at the lumbering lumberjack himself. We're going to be going over his skill setup, his background lore, his helix loadout, and I'm going to give you tips and tricks that I have found to maximize his offensive potential, and just so you can just shred through enemies on the battlefield and send them running. So let's get right into his basic skill setup. His first skill, Lumberjack Dash. He'll dash forward, hit an enemy, deal 200 damage on impact, but he'll also knock them back a good distance. And if, as they get knocked back, if they come into contact with another ally or they hit a wall, they will be stunned and completely helpless for 1 full second. That is very useful. It's great for getting distance and keeping opponents kind of at the the close end of mid-range, which is where you want them for Montana. So Montana's Lumberjack Dash, Lumberjack Dash has offensive and defensive capabilities. Hailstorm, his second skill, same story, offensive and defensive. He loads specialized ammunition that slows your opponent's movement on contact and also reduces the amount of damage that Montana takes by 30%. So it slows them, making it so that it's harder for them to get away, meaning so you can keep on them longer and keep dealing more damage, and Montana takes less damage overall. Once again, offensive and defensive. Now his ultimate is called Mansformation. Mansformation, Montana will stomp the ground and transform, and he'll get like silver metallic-y, and the stomp deals 334 damage and it launches nearby enemies into the air. Now for 10 seconds after that, Montana will take reduced damage. It's more of a defensive ability. It doesn't amplify or augment his attack, but there are augments that you can make to Montana's Mansformation in the Helix menu, and we'll get to that in a short bit. But the last thing I'd like to go over with is Montana's base minigun. The minigun has a unique property. The minigun will never reload. You will never run out of ammo. You will never have to reload, so you don't have to suffer a similar penalty like Oscar Mike or whatever. He will always have ammo. The catch is though, that instead of worrying about ammo capacity, it's heat. If you notice in the bottom right corner of the screen, next to the skill menu, you'll see a heat meter. That lets you know how close Montana's minigun is to overheating. If the bar completely fills up and it completely maxes out on the heat, the minigun will shut down and not fire for a few seconds. Now, it's not a severe penalty, but it can be annoying when you're trying to kill someone and all of a sudden you have to stop firing because the gun just won't work anymore, and then you have to wait for it to cool off before you can continue keeping up the pressure. So it's very important that you pick your spots with Montana and be smart with what you're firing at and for how long you want to hold down the trigger. Now, the other little bit about Montana's minigun is that it has an inherent ability within it, and that is the more heat that is accumulated in the meter, the more bonus damage it will do. So at 0 heat, it'll do base damage, but the more heat you have accumulated in the minigun, the more bonus damage it deals out. So that's the incentive, is to try and keep the heat at a reasonably high level so that you deal more bonus damage, which means you kill enemies faster. So that's really all I've got to go over for Montana's basic skill setup, and now we're going to move on to his background lore. So the first thing you need to know about Montana is that despite his appearance and the fact that he does look indeed human, he is not from Earth. He is from a planet called Aplia. Aplia is a rugged mountainous planet that has it's shaped its inhabitants to be very resilient and physically capable. And Trevor Galt realized just how valuable these people are, and the fact that this is an untapped resource that would just do a load of good things for the UPR. The UPR looked at this and is just like, yeah, we got to get some recruitment going on this planet because there is so much to be had here, and this planet has so much to offer in terms of its physical capabilities and the fact that the people here seem to be bred for combat. They seem to be super soldiers without any biological enhancement. I mean, it's so good that Montana, when he was being recruited, when he was talking to a recruiter, he told the story about how he wrestled a Haida-bear with his bare hands, which apparently is a bear with poisonous claws that was even taller and bigger than him, and he wrestled him and beat him and killed him with his bare hands just to survive back on his home planet of Aplia. So it really goes to show the physical prowess and abilities of the Aplians. The next piece of lore that I'm going to go over is Montana's affiliations. He is already somewhat affiliated with Benedict. I don't know how. I haven't unlocked all of Benedict's lore, but apparently those two have had some sort of a past together before all these incidents came forth with Solus and whatnot. However, Montana, we already know that he has a good relationship with Oscar Mike. We explored this in Oscar Mike's background lore during his character review, but during the Garden campaign they met and they became good friends. They were inseparable. Now they're best buds, and they have a lot of love and respect for one another. They both would gladly march head-on into combat for one another. And Trevor Galt also understands the camaraderie of the relationship between Oscar Mike and Montana, and he knows just what a team player Montana is. Montana even at one point saved Galt's life. So Galt realizes just how invaluable to this whole overall mission, to the rescuing and defense of Solus. He recognizes just how invaluable Montana is to all of it. And the last piece of information I'd like to go over is the Fireside Sing-Along. This is kind of nonsensical and pointless, but it is absolutely hilarious. For some reason, during the Fireside Sing-Along part of Montana's lore, once you unlock it, it is a straight-up legit song. It's called the Montana Song. It's performed by Montana and friends, which I don't know who the friends are. It definitely doesn't sound like anyone in the UPR, but it's a straight-up legit country-style themed song. It's hilarious. Every time I hear it, I just start laughing, and I love it. It's freaking hysterical, and it just gives you an idea of just how lighthearted and easygoing Montana's character is. And that's really all I've got to do with. That's all I've got to go over with his background lore. Next, we're going to go into his Helix loadout to show you the setup that I use to maximize his lethal capabilities in combat. Alright, so for Montana's Helix, right off the bat, we're going to go with Weatherman. We're going to increase the minigun's accuracy while Hailstorm is active. This is what we're going to be using mostly as we play Montana throughout all the times we play as him. This is going to be our main method of dealing damage, so we want it to be as accurate as possible. Go the distance isn't terrible, but you don't need it, but Weatherman is definitely much more beneficial in the long haul. Now, level 2, I go with Lumberjack Blast. Creating the shockwave at the end of Lumberjack Dash, knocking back enemies. Instead of it just knocking back one enemy, Lumberjack Blast will knock back several enemies. It'll do kind of like a shockwave area of effect blast. So we don't need push it, because that only affects one. Now, the old 1-2 isn't a bad option either, and you're probably going to rock that until you get Lumberjack Blast. And that'd be my recommendation. But Lumberjack Blast just allows us to knock back multiple enemies at the same time, and increases the chances of us getting double stuns or even triple stuns. Now, for level 3, I always go with Pumped Up. We don't need to worry about Gatling Grease since L2 doesn't, will remove the spin-up time anyway, and it really is not that big of a penalty when you think about it. Revving up a little isn't that hard at all. So we go with Pumped Up, extra 360 health. So, and now we get to the real cool one. I prefer Firestorm. I prefer to turn our bullets into into flaming bullets that'll just allow us to keep damaging them even after we're no longer hitting them. As you can tell, it's an extra 48 damage over 2 seconds, which isn't really all that much, but considering how we are constantly hitting our opponents, and we're going to be pelting them with hundreds of rounds, this is what's definitely going to help us dwindle their health. Now, right here, I go with Focused Fire. The hotter Montana's minigun, the more accurate he is. Up to 25%. Not an insane amount, but it's enough to warrant the slot. Hot-blooded and cold-blooded, really, either one is not important or necessary. Before you unlock Focus Fire, though, I would go with hot-blooded just so that the higher you keep your gun revved up, the more health you'll regen per second, which is it's better than nothing, and you're going to have to choose either cold-blooded or hot-blooded eventually, so I would go with hot-blooded first, and Focused Fire once you unlock that mutation. Now, right here, I prefer with Swole Shield. Icicles penetrating multiple targets, you don't need to worry about that since you're firing hundreds of thousands of rounds with Montana, it feels like. You're firing hundreds and thousands of rounds all throughout the whole game. It's just, you don't need to worry about bullet penetration. You don't need to worry about that at all. And and feeling the burn is actually dangerous because you actually will hurt yourself. And some people are like, well, yeah, well, he has a lot of health. But we want Montana to try and stay as healthy as possible and retain as much health as possible. And I'll show you why when we go to that item loadout. Now, right over here, we go with Ice Age. Level 7, I prefer the Hailstorm to have its duration extended, which means we go actually into Firestorm longer. We spew out more fire bullets, which means more damage for our opponents. So Barrel Cooling and Icebreaker, while not extremely terrible, we just don't need to. Ice Age is easily more preferable. Now for level 8, I would have to go with Too Big to Fail, which sounds like a reference to Banks, obviously, but Too Big to Fail, we want to use Lumberjack Dash. We don't care about impact damage with Lumberjack. We just want to be able to use it more often because it's a great offensive and defensive ability. And level 9, we're going to go with Perfect Storm. Increase the minigun damage while Hailstorm is active. Once again, more damage from our minigun. That's going to be the focus with Montana, so we're just going to keep playing to that strength. So Icy Resolve and Bullet Buff. Bullet Buff, good, but not as good as Perfect Storm in my opinion. And last but not least, I go with Instant Payback. While Man's Formation's damage reduction is active, incoming enemy fire is reflected right back at the attacker. Fairly good. Not that good against melee, obviously, because it's not enemy fire. So if it were all enemy damage, that'd be good. But enemy fire can be thrown back at them, and since Montana's, doesn't have a great way of dealing with enemies that are at extreme distance, like Marquis or Thorn, for example, his minigun's not that accurate at those ranges. Instant Payback is actually not a terrible option, especially when you're going to go and challenge enemy objectives, like, for instance, the Spider Walker in Incursion mode. So I go with Instant Payback over Big Payback, personally. And that's my Helix loadout for Montana. Okay, so before we get back to the actual gameplay, I'd like to go over the next thing, and that is my gear loadout. I almost completely forgot to mention this, but there's one piece of equipment that I personally have that makes Montana so much more dangerous and lethal, and we'll get to that in a second. But right off the bat, let me show you the first two items I've got, which is the Jank Trister's Rusty Nail. This allows for shield penetration, especially after activating a skill. Now, people are like, well, yeah, that's not too bad, but don't forget, we have Hailstorm. When we activate Hailstorm, that means we're going to get over 30% shield penetration. Now, yes, we do take a hit to healing received, but Montana has so much health that we should be able to it's not like we take extra damage, it just means we don't heal as fast. So it's not like we die faster. So the trade-off, in my opinion, is worth it at that point. We get more shield penetration, we're able to damage them more consistently, especially with all the augmentations on the Helix tree that I showed you. Shield penetration just makes it so that we get at their health faster, enabling us to kill them just a little bit quicker than if we had no shield penetration. So I definitely recommend that you have something like this for shield penetration that you can that you get a special bonus for, especially after activating a skill, which, like I said, either Lumberjack Dash or Hailstorm, just so good. Now, next up, we got the Deadly Cellular Condenser. This is a vest. We go with some increased health. Once again, more health. Hey, Montana's got enough, but why not a little bit more? Now, the next thing is attack damage. We will get 60 seconds of bonus attack damage after we kill a player or a major enemy, but since we're able to kill people rather efficiently, we will get that. And we'll get it for an extra minute, a whole minute of bonus damage, which is very, very useful, because what bonus damage means is every single individual bullet does a little bit more than what it should. And when you stack that up with the hundreds of bullets that we're going to be spewing at enemies, that adds up to more and more and more damage overall, which means we kill things faster. Now, this last piece of equipment is absolutely fun. Look at this, the Symbiotic Gauntlet. We get 8.22% attack damage, and then an extra 3.5% movement speed, but that's not, it's the last one. Gain up to another 8.22% attack damage based on current percentage of max health. That means that if Montana's at full health, we get an extra 16% attack damage from this one item. But since Montana has such huge amounts of health, that means that we will have a great chance of amplifying and getting the most out of that bonus for that second extra 8.22%. So the more health Montana has, the better things are, the more damage you will do, which is why we definitely want to be cautious when we're fighting with Montana. You can definitely engage enemies, but use certain areas of the map, and I'll go over that more with his tactics, but the Symbiotic Gauntlet is absolutely amazing. It gives us so much of an increase in terms of base attack damage. That just means that every round does significantly more damage than it should, which once again means we kill things faster. So this equipment setup, this gear loadout is fairly good. I found it to be very effective. I strongly recommend that you try something a little different than this. If you don't have the Symbiotic Gauntlet, I totally understand. Do your best with whatever you can get. But you know what? If you do get Symbiotic Gauntlet, hang on to it. Don't get rid of it. Even if you've never used Montana, this thing will be a difference maker on the battlefield. You just shred through enemies. You shred through those big fat, those fat minion robots, the big guys. You shred through them with this. It's so useful. So if you do get the Symbiotic Gauntlet, hang on to it. And this is my equipment loadout from Montana. And now we're going to cut back to the gameplay, and I'm going to go over my tips and tricks and battle strategies. Alright, so for the first tip with Montana, you've already heard me mention it before, but that is kind of be cautious and peek around corners. You want to be cautious and use cover like I'm doing. Make it so that your opponents really have to put their necks on the line if they want to challenge you. And you know what? Montana is not someone you want to challenge lightly. He may seem like a big bumbling oaf of an opponent, but he is not to be underestimated. When you have the right equipment loadout and the right battle tactics, Montana is probably the most dangerous big guy out there. I have shredded through Toby's and Isaac's. I have shredded through Atticus and Shane and Oryx. There are so many of the enemies that I encounter are the big guys, they don't stand a chance. Montana is so good at just shredding through people's health. You gotta play smart. Don't forget to head glitch every now and then, flank a little bit, get up high like what I'm doing right here. Shoot your opponents in their sides and in their ass, and just make it so that they're no longer able to look in one direction and deal with this. And as you can see right there, Wrath trying to use Dreadwind on me again, and I just lumberjack dash, and I told you Lumberjack Dash was a great defensive ability, and that is exactly why. You'll see Wrath come at me with a ferocity later on in this video, and I'll have a small sliver of health left, and I just Lumberjack Dash, and I'm just like, get the fuck off me. It is such a fun and satisfying feeling to use Lumberjack Dash and to stun opponents and to just make them just wait for death to come save them, because that's really all that's going to happen is they're just waiting for death. But like I said, be smart with Montana, pick your spots wisely, and you know what? In bad situations, don't panic, don't freak out. You know what? Just be smart. I hardly use Mance Formation, I will admit. I don't really feel that it's all that necessary, but it is a fun little go-to ability, and I definitely acknowledge its purpose and just how useful it is. But as you can see right here, Wrath is still coming after me, and I'm just going to get away from him. But what happens is Montana just draws so much attention, so you don't want to run out in the open. Oh, right here. Here's the moment. He comes at me, I'm at a sliver of health left, and I just shoulder charge right into Dreadwind, and then he just knows he's fucked, because me and two other people are shooting at him, and then he had no chance. I'm sorry, bro, but nothing personal. Anyway, now we're going to cut over to some other gameplay that's not as amazing. It was a very rough battle, but I did manage to do well despite the fact that me and my team were kind of getting stomped. But anyway, Montana is the type of person that as soon as he steps out of the battlefield, he gets everyone's attention. Everyone's eyes immediately go, oh, Montana, and they're inclined to shoot at me. Even if they don't think I'm that big of a threat, they know that I'm that big of a target. It's easy to pick Montana apart from a distance. People like Marquis and Thorn love to see enemy Montanas. They just love them. So it's very, very dangerous to walk out into the middle of the open, like I'm doing right here. This is very dangerous for me, but I need to push them back and get them out of our base. But Montana is great at catching your opponents when they're snoozing, when they think, oh, it's safe, it's okay, it's safe to be right here. and all of a sudden, you know, they just see their health get shredded down to tiny little bits. Montana is great at just melting people, so long as you have the right setup and the right strategies. Use Firestorm bullets, you know, right when you've got a good setup, when you've got a good line of sight, and you know that it's going to take them a while to try and retreat. That's when you use Firestorm. But Montana is an absolute monster when it comes to DPS. With the right Helix augments that I've shown you and the right equipment loadout, which I've also shown you, Montana just tears through opponents. If they take every bullet, they will die quickly. And even the guys who, if they don't run away immediately, if they don't back off and realize the bad spot they're in, they're going to die as well. I mean, Montana is great at getting double kills. Maybe not triple kills, because by the time your teammates realize, oh shit, 2 of us went down to 1 guy, the rest are probably going to back off. So I haven't gotten too many triple kills with Montana, but I've definitely gotten my fair share of double kills. Montana is great at just turning tides and just coming out of nowhere and just saying, hey guys, what's up? Say hello to my little friend. And then you just shred through opponents' health bars. And then they're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And then you know what? It's just lights out for them. Montana is a beast. He's not to be taken lightly. He is not to be underestimated. Do not write him off as this big lumbering fool of an opponent. He will surprise you, and in the worst way possible. Montana is to be played smart, but yet when he is played smart and played effectively, he is a menace to society for your opponents. And that's really all I've got to go over for this gameplay. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and my commentary. If you did, please don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, comment down below. Follow me on Twitch and Twitter. Stay tuned and follow, wait at my channel, check on me for other videos. I've got several other backlog character reviews I got to go over, especially our new character, Alani. She is actually getting close to getting to level 12. And I will see you guys all later in my next video. This is RadTech Shoes signing off.